From the News Channel 5 Network, this is SportsLine.
Hey there, SportsLine on your television. Steve Layman here with you. Glad you are here with us on this Tuesday night on News Channel 5 Plus. And we got a lot of football to talk about. Of course, we can wrap up the Titans' loss in Pittsburgh on Sunday and how disappointing that was. But you also have to turn the page and get set for Thursday night football here in Nashville as the Titans host the red-hot 49ers over at Nissan Stadium. And let's go back to that game on Sunday first. We'll move on through all of this tonight. We welcome your phone calls at 737-7767. That was a game that it felt like the Titans needed to win. And it felt like the Titans should have won. Whatever you want to say about the bad losses in New York earlier this season to the Jets or the loss to the Texans several weeks ago now in November, the Titans played horribly throughout the entire portion of those games. They were very beat up. They still are beat up, and they definitely played horribly in the second half offensively. But in both of those other games, they never got going. They never had a foothold in the game, and they just didn't play very well. And they lost on those days. Sunday, to me, in Pittsburgh was a game where while the offense never was exactly burning up the turf at Heinz Field, they put the Titans in a position in the first half to have a 10-point lead. The Titans were up 13-3 at the half. It should have been more than that. And you did have to wonder to yourself at halftime if the Titans had missed an opportunity to really seize control of that game. And it turns out they did. But they were still up by 10. They got the ball to start the second half. They traded punts in the third quarter. And the way the defense was playing was hard to imagine how the Steelers could figure out a way to win that game with the lack of offense they were getting without the Titans actually handing them the ball. Unfortunately, that's what happened. The Titans literally handed them the ball over and over and over. And the turnovers that have been a problem for this team in the last few weeks. They've lost 3 of 4 games. In the 3 losses, the Titans have turned the ball over 13 times. They also didn't get any takeaways in those 3 games. This from a team that going into that was 8-2 on top of the AFC. But for this conversation, more importantly, the Titans were upper half of the NFL in turnover margin at that point. They were +4 for the season and had been really good during a 6-game winning streak. The only reason it wasn't more than that was because of some struggles in the first couple of games of the year. But they were a quality turnover differential team, and that's why they were 8-2. And now in the last 4 games, this team is -9. And that's only because they forced 4 turnovers last week and the 1 win in the last month against the lowly Jaguars. In the 3 games they've lost, they are -13. 13 turnovers, 0 takeaways. I don't care who you are or how talented you are losing in the NFL every week if that's what it looks like. If you've got 4 turnovers, you're losing. And think about what happened on Sunday. The Titans were up by 10. Racey McMath fumbles, trying to convert a 3rd down. He's nowhere close. Sometimes you just got to learn to live to fight another day. It's kind of like a quarterback in the pocket. Sometimes you just have to take the sack as opposed to make a terrible throw. Sometimes you have to throw it away to avoid the sack. Sometimes you just have to know when it's not there, and that can be your best friend. In this case, Racey McMath trying to make a play. He loses it. The Steelers get the ball in great field position in Tennessee territory. They went 3 and out offensively. They got nothing, but they got a field goal. Then you have a interception, which was a great play defensively by Taco Charlton. Joe Schobert got the interception, but Charlton got his big paw on it and tipped it up in the air. Otherwise, that's probably a 3rd down conversion. So that's kind of unfortunate luck. But the return, again, gives the Steelers great field position. They don't do anything with it. The Titans' defense stands tall again. But They get a field goal. And then you have that inexplicable muff snap. Ryan Tannehill and Ben Jones have taken snaps together for basically 3 years now. I'm not sure if they've ever fumbled a snap. Certainly not in a game. The idea that it happened there is just, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around. But once again, the Steelers have the ball, great field position, don't really do anything with it, but they get a field goal. That's what every possession was. 4 turnovers, 4 field goals. They didn't move the ball. They just got the ball in scoring territory already. And that's how the Steelers got 12 of their points. That was the difference in the game. No question about it. The Titans spoiled a really good defensive performance by their inability to hold on to the football for the 3rd time in 4 weeks. We've talked about this before, and it came up again. And here's the thing. They got to quit it because they're going to lose on Thursday to the 49ers. They're going to lose in 2 weeks to the Dolphins. They might lose again to the Texans again if they don't hold on to the football. You absolutely have to value the ball in this league. And when you're the Titans, especially right now when the offense isn't putting up huge numbers because of all the injuries, especially right now, you've got to value the football. Sometimes a drive to midfield and a Brett Kern punt to pin the other team back and let the defense go do its job again, sometimes that can be good offense. Because then maybe you start your next drive at midfield. Couple first downs, you're in field goal territory. One big play, maybe you get a touchdown. That's what the Titans have to do right now, given their limitations offensively. And let's talk about that a little bit, because it's absolutely true. We sat here in August talking about how we thought this could be a historically good Titans offense. You had the NFL rushing champ and a guy who ran for over 2,000 yards last year in Derrick Henry. You had A.J. Brown, who was a 1,000-yard receiver. And you had the addition of Julio Jones, who's going to be in the Hall of Fame. That's how good he's been as a receiver throughout the course of his career. But we haven't seen that offense at all. Took him a couple of games to all get going. You had A.J. Brown nicked up early. Then you had Julio Jones. You had them both battling hamstrings. Jones has never recovered from that. He leaves the game again on Sunday. We don't know his status yet for Thursday night. He did not practice today. Brown has been in and out of the lineup, first with the hamstring, out for the last month because of a chest injury. And Henry, of course, has the broken football that has kept him out for 6 weeks. We haven't seen the offense we expected, but it is glaring how different it is without those guys. When the Titans have at least 2 of the big 3 on the field, they're averaging basically 29 points per game. But that's only happened in 5 games. When you drop it to only 1 of the guys, you're looking at an offense that's averaging 16 points. So nearly 2 touchdowns less than what they average when 2 guys or 3 guys are a part of this. And what we've seen here recently, unfortunately, is what happens when you have none out there. Second half against Houston, when A.J. goes down, nothing. The New England game, they got 13 all in the first half, nothing in the second half. None of those guys played in it. And then Sunday, again, Julio Jones ruled out at halftime. Titans had 13 points in the first half with him on the field in some capacity. Got nothing after the break. Essentially, in 2 games this year, 1 full game and 2 second halves, in which none of the big 3 have been on the field, the Titans have averaged essentially a touchdown for 60 minutes. You don't win in the NFL with that being the case. Thank heavens the Titans defense has made the strides they've made this year. Because remember, back in August, we were talking about what can they do? Can they be better this year? Are we going to see something different from them? Can they be good enough to allow this historically good offense to take this Titans team somewhere special? Well, it's been the Titans defense that has carried the load. And now you're just hoping you can get enough back offensively to balance things out and not ask them to do too much. But that's the situation the Titans are in. We saw it again Sunday, and it's got to change because it is not realistic to expect this Titans defense to be able to hold teams to field goals every time they get in the red zone. It is not realistic to expect this defense to come up with 2 and 3 and 4 turnovers a game. We've heard it time and time again from a lot of these defensive guys. They say, we've got to go out. Our goal every week is to outperform the other team's defense. And the Titans defense has played great. But when your offense is handing the ball over on muff snaps and all sorts of other ridiculous turnovers, it's very difficult to outperform the other defense. I mean, the Titans defense gave up almost no yards, 168 yards on Sunday. It was the lowest output they had allowed defensively since 2010. And they lost the football game because of all the turnovers that their offense had. The Pittsburgh defense gave up more yards. They bent more than the Titans did, but they came up with the turnovers. One of them was a great play. 3 of them, if you're in the Titans meeting room, you're scratching your head and saying, how in the world did we do that? And how in the world did we do that 2 weeks after we did it in New England and 3 weeks after we did it against Houston? We cannot afford to do that. And that is definitely the case moving forward. They got to figure it out here on a short week for Thursday Night Football. 737-7767, the number. We want to hear from you tonight. And we begin with Mike. Mike, good evening and welcome to SportsLine.
Good evening. I'd like to make a statement and then ask a question.
Sure.
If you look at this breakdown in offensive performance after the 8-2 record, several things jump out at you. Number one, you're talking about the most highly paid left tackle on the Titans offensive line that just repeatedly allows people to run right by him and sack the quarterback. I mean, just over and over. He's just, it's almost like he turns his back on some of these rushers and opens it up. But this lack of performance by the offensive line has put so much pressure on the quarterback. Just think back a few games, how many times our quarterback has been sacked protection-wise. Where is it? What happened why did it go away? And if you want a solution for this team, if you're looking for the answer as to the difference in the performance of this team, just a quick look at the offensive line and what a tremendous impact it's had not only on the runners, the quarterback, not only the time that it takes away from those decisions that the quarterback's trying to make time-wise. His time many times is cut in half. If you, in my opinion, we need to look at the offensive line. Do you agree or disagree? Thank you.
I agree and I disagree, actually. I don't put any of the real blame on what's going on with the Titans offense on the offensive line. They certainly haven't turned the ball over. They do need to be better in pass protection for sure. They've been phenomenal in run blocking. You're talking about a team that ran for 270 yards against the Patriots, ran for over 200 this weekend against the Steelers. They have been phenomenal in sustaining the run game without Derrick Henry. The Titans are still running the football effectively despite not having the best running back in the league. That is amazing. What they have not been able to sustain is without Julio Jones and without A.J. Brown, more importantly probably, considering all of the injuries we've seen. We've never really seen Julio Jones make the impact we hoped in this offense. We've seen A.J. Brown be effective. What the Titans have not been able to do is replace that production. The passing game has looked nothing like what we thought it could without one or both of those guys in it. They've tried some plays down the field, haven't been able to convert. They haven't been able to connect at a high level. They haven't been able to consistently move the ball, and obviously they've turned it over. Ryan Tannehill has had to force things more than he'd like. He's dealing with some young guys that maybe he's not quite always on the same page with. That's led to interceptions. He's working on a career high for that right now. Those are the things that are the real problem right here. And when you look at Taylor Lewan, he is a common punching bag for Titans fans. He is the least of the Titans' problems right now. He had his first holding penalty in like 3 years Sunday. He has other penalties, no question about it. But he has his first holding penalty in 3 years. He's given up 4 sacks the entire season. And if I'm not mistaken, I think 3 of those were in week 1 against Chandler Jones, who had that monster sack day for Arizona. And that, by the way, was the first action for Lewan coming back basically right at 10 months from tearing his ACL last year. He has gotten better and better as the season goes along. He has been mauling people in the run game on the left side, mostly along with Roger Saffold, though Saffold was unable to go on Sunday in Pittsburgh. He has been an anchor over there. You can debate if you want to pay a left tackle as much as the Titans are paying him, or if he's been healthy enough to deserve that over the last couple of years. You can debate that. But Taylor Lewan is not the issue for this Titans team. The offensive line is not the issue for this offense. The Titans have to find a way to generate something in the passing game. It's not going to be 350 yards a game. Ryan Tannehill's not going to turn into Patrick Mahomes all of a sudden, especially with these wide receivers. But they have to find a way to make the play action count. That's one thing that has totally disappeared. Despite the fact they've continued to run the football effectively, they haven't been able to pass off of it. With Derrick Henry, the Titans run the football, and then they get into play action. And they've often hit big plays off of that. None of that has existed over the last month. They have to find a way to generate that as part of their offense again. They have to find a way to play in front of the sticks and get in third and short where it is a convertible distance, and they have to protect better. If you do want to put some blame on the offensive line, it is in the pass game. Just like everything else about the pass game, it is not clicked up front. And so while they are mauling people in the run game and consistently getting yards and chunks running the football, whether it's Deontay Foreman or Dontrell Hilliard, that's been fine. The problem is when they're asked to pass block, they have struggled. And Ryan Tannehill has been sacked the second most times of any quarterback in the National Football League. And heaven knows they have to keep him healthy at this point. So that has to be better. But to me, the biggest area of improvement, it goes without saying, it's turnovers. You cannot turn the ball over this many times. But just simply from the offensive standpoint, from an execution standpoint, they got to be better in the pass game. That starts with the protection. Then it goes to the decision-making of Tannehill. And finally, those receivers have to find a way to get open and make a catch. Make a contested catch. Make a catch in traffic. Move the sticks. Get a touchdown. They have to find a way to do that because it is impossible to win in this league only being able to run the football. This is such a quarterback-heavy league, in part because when you can connect in the passing game, you move the ball down the field quickly. And we saw this on Sunday. The Titans had the longest drive they've had in 18 years. It was 16 plays long and over 10 minutes. The problem? They didn't get it in the end zone. They had to settle for a field goal after a drive like that. And that comes from the fact that they're getting no explosive plays. They might be getting 4 or 5 yards on a run, but ultimately they come down to having to convert a third down at some point. And if you can't do that consistently with your passing game, you're going to end up punting. You're going to end up kicking a field goal. Or worse yet, in the case of the Titans, you're going to end up turning the ball over, and that has absolutely been the case. The explosive plays that have been a hallmark of this offense the last couple of years, especially since Tannehill took over at quarterback, they are non-existent for this team this season. The Titans have to be able to find some of that. And by the way, there are a couple of them there on Sunday. First play of the game. Offensively, That's a play-action shot, and Julio Jones is gone. It is a touchdown if Tannehill has enough time to throw it. But Nate Davis was a turnstile at left guard. Or I'm sorry, Aaron Brewer, who was starting at left guard. Nate Davis was at right guard. Aaron Brewer comes in for Roger Saffold. He gives up an immediate sack. What could have been a touchdown starts you behind the chains on the opening possession of the game. They had another shot. First play of another drive in the second quarter. Nick Westbrook-Akine going deep. It was right on his hands. He's got it in his hands. Can't come up with the catch. It was his first drop of the season. But it cost the Titans a big play and potentially points. Those types of plays have to be made. When they're there for the taking, you have to make them. And the Titans just simply have not been able to do that in the passing game. Phone lines are open, 737-7767, the number. We'll take a break. We'll come back. Much more straight ahead here on SportsLine on News Channel 5+.